Holy Happy Hour Batman, I'm Ben. I'm an Episcopal priest and co-founder of the All Ports Open Network. On this show, Holy Happy Hour Batman, I'm joined by heroes of the gaming and geek world to talk about life, faith, spirituality, game design philosophy, and literally whatever else comes up. This week, I am very excited to be joined from the other side of my own state of Pennsylvania, one of the co-hosts of the Church of the Geek podcast and ELCA pastor. If you're not a church person and you know what the ELCA is, that's the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. The Reverend Brian Bennett is going to be joining us in a few minutes. I'm excited to talk to Brian tonight about, all kinds of things about geek culture, comics or theological lens, podcasting, whatever else comes up. We might do some like church talk in this one more than most of the episodes we do. I'm excited about that because I don't get to do that much on this show. So it's going to be fun. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I think it's going to be a really fun episode. Feel free to bring your questions into the chat and we would love to see them. So a few things before we get into this episode of the show. Holy Happy Hour Batman is a production of allportsopen.com. Check out our website for our lineup of podcasts and streams, sharing, making, and talking about great stories with shows like the hit horror audio drama Weeping Cedars, my own show, teen superhero show Delinquent Comics, and so much more. Normally I would be telling you to stick around after this episode of Holy Happy Hour Batman, because for those of you watching this on Twitch, we always raid into our network's other Monday night actual play game. The Monday Night Crew has been terrorizing the open seas as pirates. However, the fantasy pirate adventure is coming to an end. They are not streaming tonight because of stuff that I am not privy to. However, they will be back. I don't know if it's going to be before the end of the year or not, actually, but they'll be back at some point. And when they come back, I know they're going to be back to playing The Worst Days, I think, the character creation for The Worst Days, which is a Apon Games original game by Joshua Wise, which is still in playtest mode. It's a horror game, sure to be super fun. So again, that's on the Monday Night Crew show. So there's no Monday Night show tonight after our show. So just hang out with Brian and I here tonight, and we're going to have a lot of fun together. It's going to be great. By the way, speaking of All Ports Open, there's going to be a new way very soon / now to watch our live content. You're going to be able to watch all of our live content at allportsopen.com/live. This is going to be the best place to watch all of our live stuff. It's going to be all there with great information about our cast members. Really easy to access that information and to find them on social media and wherever they're at, and just see and experience all of our live content right on one website. So that's going to be allportsopen.com/live. You can always watch all of our content at All Ports Open, but this is a new way to watch it there at allportsopen.com/live. Okay, let's see. Oh, I have one other thing I want to get into before we do the drink for this week, which you can already see up on the screen. I'm excited because my show Delinquent Comics, which is a Masks actual play podcast, teen superheroes, coming of age story. It's really, really great show. Super fun, high action, high energy, high drama, lots of laughs. We just recorded our Christmas special, and I announced it a little bit ago, about 37 minutes ago, on our Delinquent Comics Twitter feed, that our Christmas special this year, our first holiday special, is a villain holiday takeover featuring guest GM Jeff Stormer. You've seen Jeff here on this show before. You know Jeff from Party of One podcast, from All My Fantasy Children. You know him as the game designer for Mission Accomplished, which is the game we play in the Christmas special, and Anyone Can Wear the Mask, his own superhero TTRPG game. Jeff is amazing. He's an amazing GM. I've been very privileged to play Mission Accomplished with him a couple of times. This holiday special was one of the funniest things. I was seriously in pain from laughing. It's awesome. For our Patreon backers, it's going to come out on the 20th. For everybody else, it'll be released on Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas to you and for those who celebrate it, and just whatever, you're welcome to everybody else. It's a really great episode. You're gonna not want to miss. I definitely recommend making a point to listen to it. Even if you don't listen to our normal show, it's its own complete different thing. It is a holiday massacre, I'll say that. So content warning for lots of adult language and holiday antics for sure, and too much of the band Creed. But that's anyway, that's another note altogether. So, on one more personal note, I want to say thanks to my guest last week, Avraham Baez, who was our guest last week on the show. Oh, I had it right in front of me, so I could show you, and I forgot I put it on my game shelf. Thanks to Avraham, because he gave me a copy at PAX Unplugged this weekend of his game, Mom, Dad, I Summoned a Demon, and Now We're Getting Married. I think it's the full name of the game, which is the drink. I made a drink based on that last week on the show. Abraham's awesome. I really appreciate him giving me a copy of the game and making the time to be on the show last week. So, all right, before we get to the interview, it is happy hour. We do have our drink up on the screen, and I want to do a little bit of explaining about this one because there's a bunch of influences on this drink. So this is I called it Of Gods and Heroes, and it's inspired by a few different things related to Brian. So I knew I wanted to mix together, like Church of the Geek podcast mixes things together, like the Bible and comics or theology, spirituality, and the MCU or whatever. I wanted to mix some stuff together. I also apparently Pittsburgh, where Brian is at in the universe, is known for the and now I'm totally forgetting what it's called. It is the Boilermaker. That's it. Which this basically is a Boilermaker. And I don't know why Pittsburgh is related to the Boilermaker, but apparently they are. And also, I don't know many Lutherans who don't like a good Pilsner, which is a German-style beer. So those are some of the influences here on this drink. You see that it is really a Boilermaker, honestly. It's a shot of Philadelphia's own New Liberty Distillery, Kinsey Bourbon, and then half a pint of some Pennsylvania Pilsner, made by any fabulous Pennsylvania brewer. I would I give as an example here Prima Pils from Victory Brewing. And you can really drink these however you want. You can sort of drop the shot of the traditional Boilermaker, drop the bourbon into the Pilsner, and down the whole thing. You can sort of sip them and enjoy them together on their own. However you like, you can enjoy them as long as you do so responsibly. So that is our drink tonight. It hardly passes as a cocktail, but it's Of Gods and Heroes, my ode to Church of the Geek and to Brian being on the show this week. So, all right, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and bring Brian up on the show so we can all say hello and start to get to know Brian. And so, Brian Bennett, Pastor Brian, I don't know if that's what people call you, but welcome to Holy Happy Hour, Batman.
Thanks. It's I'm great to be here. I had to.
Yeah, we got Batman hat. It's the first one of any guest to wear Batman attire, I believe.
Really?
On the show. Oh, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, unbelievable.
I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't know if you can see the Twitch feed, Brian, but we are right now in the Bat Cave. It's really
sweet.
It's the I guess.
No,
so
I don't see the.
So I don't get sued. It's the Ben Cave, I suppose. But sorry,
the Ben Cave.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Thanks for having me on. I love to sit and geek out about all sorts of stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Fantastic.
I'm really excited. Interesting coincidences that happen. I always end up finding some connection with people that are on the show that I didn't know about. And I found out Brian knows Joshua Wise, who's the Apon co-founder with me. And so that's super fun. But we are on the other side of the state. So I've got questions about this. So first question is, are you a football / Steelers fan? That's my first question.
Okay. So I grew up in the Pittsburgh area in the 70s. I bleed black and gold.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't help that.
Yeah. I mean, no judgment from me.
No. But here's the catch.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a game in about 3 years.
Okay.
Okay. I have to say, I blame Will Smith, and the movie Concussion.
Yeah.
I watched that. And the more I read about it, the more I watch, and I see that it's really the subconcussive hits that build up over time.
Yeah,
I can't watch a football game and go like my entertainment should be based on people literally bashing their brains in, and I literally can't watch. I start to watch one and I'm like, there'll be like one questionable hit and I'll be like, and which is crazy because I lived through the Steel Curtain. I watched the Super Bowl victories.
Yeah.
I've watched all of the, that 70s team was sort of heart and soul of
Yeah.
so much of the stuff. So now I don't watch it. I do watch hockey. I do, I'm a Pens fan, and I'm and definitely a Pirates fan, which is super sad. But
Yeah. I am
so
curious about that because I'm not a big hockey person, right?
mhm.
I've been to my share of Flyer games. I've been to my share of,
I'm sorry.
minor league games.
Uh,
Thanks. Thanks. So, but when I think of hockey, I do think of fighting. So I am curious about. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit different than football in the concussion state. Like, it's definitely,
yeah.
I could see that there's some difference, but yeah, I don't know.
Right. So yeah. So when the linemen line up in football, right, every snap they are slamming their heads
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Right. Every play that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then you get the dramatic ones with the wide receiver going across the middle and and the secondary like slamming into so that's a secondary thing, but it's those repeated subconcussive hits and on the line that is really, really problematic
Yeah.
in hockey. So I get that there's risk. I'm not about risk. I just,
Sure.
when it's happening every play, because I read a study, they did a pilot study with high school players,
Oh.
and they did blood draws before and after games, and even people who didn't have a concussive hit started showing the T protein that is signs of
Wow.
this stuff so I'm like,
That's crazy.
I just, which is a shame because there is something really exciting about football and all.
Yeah,
It's
no,
been
I hear you.
yeah.
I recently had a conversation with some friends of mine who I won't, name for them, but they who I didn't even know were big football people to the point of even playing fantasy football every year and being really into football, which I didn't know about them because the whole time I've known them, they had stopped watching for that reason, and also the way the league handled domestic abuse issues of
Yeah.
late in the last number of years, and the combination of those things was too much, and they gave up the sport. And so I've had this conversation a number of times. It's something that I need to think and process about. It's so hard when you love the game, right? Like, it really is.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe it shouldn't be that hard when, even though you love the game. But there's fandom, and then there's like connection to your city. There's like identity and belonging and things like that are tied into it.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah, absolutely. So
But anyway, so sports side, so as you said, you grew up in the Pittsburgh area. That was one thing I was wondering about. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get too deep into you, which I want to do, is just in general talk about ELCA stuff. And this is the geek out stuff that I don't know how many. This is maybe the self-serving stuff I don't know. But so I was started to tell Brian before the show. I went to an ELCA seminary first before I went to a Episcopal seminary. I went to the no longer existing LTSB, Lutheran Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, in Germantown, or Mount Airy, I guess, neighborhood of Philadelphia. Yeah. So I don't know how many connections you have to LTSP or where you went to. Where did you go to seminary?
Mm-hmm. So actually, I considered Philly.
Yeah.
My wife and I, I had left a PhD program in grad school at Penn State. My wife she did a master's in Westchester, at Westchester University. And I moved down to be close to her. We got married. Then we were trying to decide how we were going to move forward from that. And we needed a place where there was a Lutheran seminary and she could get her doctorate in piano pedagogy. Those were the two things. That's not an easy thing to find. It ended up, she could have gone to Catholic in DC, and I'd have gone up to Philly. One of us would have had to commute. It would have been weird. But we found out I ended up going to the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary in Columbia, South Carolina. She did her DMA at the University of South Carolina and we could live at the seminary, and she had a 10-minute drive, and it was a no-brainer. So I was one of the first people from my synod, that is like your diocese, to go to South Carolina, because we get a lot of people, Gettysburg, Philly, even over to Columbus, from Pittsburgh. It could go a lot of different ways. I went south So
Yeah,
that's
most of
where
the
I ended
people who
up.
are Lutheran that I talk to in Pennsylvania, between my friends I met at seminary and the other people I know, like everyone's either a Gettysburg or a LTSP person, or I'm trying to think of where else people were from, but definitely few. I don't know if I know anybody else who went south.
Oh,
So there's
I'm rare. I'm
yeah,
rare up here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have two seminaries in the same state for one denomination, which is, I mean, no wonder they don't exist anymore, I guess.
Well, yeah, and it was interesting. People would be like, "Why did you bypass the two seminaries in Pennsylvania?" I'm like, "Okay, first off, I'm in Western PA. I didn't really bypass them.
That's true. That's a good
As
point.
like,
It's not
I
like
would
they
have
were
had to
next
go
door,
across the
right?
Pennsylvania
Yeah.
Turnpike, and
Yeah.
that drive is the worst drive. It's one of the worst drives in the United States. I I opted to go south. That's just what it, went down 79 and kept driving. That's yeah. So that was where we were. It was mainly it was about my wife and I being able to like start our married life together without one of us having a weird commute.
I
So
mean, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Well, I do want to get into a little bit deeper to your sort of one of the things I like to do with people is talk about their origin story, which
mhm.
is
Yeah.
applicable when we talk about both like TTRPG stuff and comic books. Two things I like to talk about here on the show. So what is your? I know that's a broad question, perhaps overly broad, but what is your Brian Bennett origin story?
Mm. You have to be careful. One of my professors at seminary said, Brian, when someone asks you how you're doing, you start with the creation of the world. So sorry. Here we go.
That's what this show is for, though. That's the thing.
It's
I've heard of people comment a lot about when people who are ordained, like us, when we talk about our call story. I've heard a lot of jokes about that. This is the place for it. So, start at
awesome.
creation. Go for it.
And the Lord said, let there be light, yada, yada, yada. No.
Right.
So I did say I grew up in Pittsburgh. My dad was a steel worker. My mom was a pretty much a stay-at-home mom, but she worked in my grandparents' mom and pop store, like in the mornings, because my grandmother would stay up till like 4 in the morning doing books and drinking coffee. And she would so my mom would open up the store for her and everything. Um, but I was the first person in my family to go to college. And Yeah, so but let me just say in a lot of ways, I didn't I didn't really fit in with a lot of that steelworker, blue collar stuff. Like I was into books, I was into reading. Like I taught myself to read before I went to kindergarten. It all sort of picked up, and like my parents knew pretty early on. They're like, yeah, that boy's going to college. So, which was great. They were super supportive. It was really fantastic, and that was all good. So, um, I ended up. I went to Oberlin College is my alma mater, and I studied physics. And along the way, it's kind of a super geeky growing up. I mean, if there was a geek, I was kind of it. I mean, I was a band geek. I was a Dungeons and Dragons geek. We did a lot of. I did read comics. I didn't read so many comics in the way like I didn't collect comics at the
Okay.
time, but I did read them. Like my grandparents in their store, they got Archie comics.
Yeah.
Uh, I read all four variations of the Archie comic story 8,000 times.
Wow.
So it's because she would get them, and then if they didn't sell, she'd cut the thing off. But then I could still read them.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
didn't care. Because I wasn't collecting them. I was more worried about the stories and all that sort of stuff. So
That's cool.
read Archie comics a lot.
Well,
Which
isn't this sort of the goal? Isn't this sort of not the golden, but a prime time to be into Archie? Isn't this like a time when there's a lot of really good Archie content out there?
yeah, there is, and strangely enough, I've not read any of it. I've not watched
Fair enough.
Riverdale. I've
Right.
not seen any of the comics. And I wanted to, but like my list of things to watch is
Oh
is
yeah.
already
I
so
mean,
backed up. But yeah.
yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, so yeah, playing D&D with my friends, running through the woods, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We did a lot of outdoor stuff, and uh, but went off to college and geeked out about math and science for 4 years as a physics major, and strangely enough, I knew people who were playing D&D, but I never played it. Like, part of me was like, oh, I need to put childish things behind me, which is stupid. It was dumb. I should have thought about playing. And but none of my friends played, and it didn't really seem to care. And oh well, there it went. But I went off. I left college, had a year off, started a PhD program at Penn State in acoustics.
Okay.
And which I ended up doing. It was a very interdisciplinary thing. So I was doing physical acoustics. I was doing low temperature physics research. And I was there for 4 years. And I probably had another 3 or 4 to go, because experimental physics it's a drag. I mean, there's a grind. I'm sorry. It's a grind.
I see. Yeah.
You do the experiment, you wait till it fails, you change one thing, you do it again, wait till it fails, you change one thing. And because mine was low temperature physics, it includes a large cryostat. And so there were like 3 days of cooling it down. And then you do the experiment, and times I'd run it for 2 weeks straight and no sleep. And it was terrible. It was really crazy. And my advisor and I didn't get along. And
that's crazy.
At that point though, actually, so it's interesting you picked sort of the Boilermaker.
Okay.
Because I also, during that time, my wife got me a home brewing kit. I got into like craft beers, and so I started brewing stuff. And
nice.
So
that's cool.
You didn't know.
No, I didn't.
But that was a great choice.
Nice. Awesome. I always like when that coincidentally happens.
Yeah.
I am curious about out of curiosity, around when was that you started homebrewing? Because that sounds like it was, well, I'll let, yeah.
Yeah, so I started at Penn State at 94.
Yeah.
And so it would have been somewhere like 95, or it would have been 96.
No, that's super early for homebrewing. Like, people were obviously homebrewing, but like not like now.
Yeah, no. But I did it with plastic bucket and bottles and little bits of stuff here and there, all extract stuff, and there were enough places around to get goods and all, and
way pre craft beer revolution.
It was on the forefront, because what was happening is we were like, some friends and I would get together. There was a restaurant in State College that was having monthly craft, like they'd bring a brewery in.
Yeah.
And then like they would match me like food with the beers, and
all right.
And so and there were like 30 people in the room, and we were doing this, and it was great. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. I learned a ton. So I was very excited for that. That was really cool. In fact, then when I left grad school, because my advisor and I it was such a bad match. It was terrible. That when I left, I thought, okay, now I got to try. Seminary had been a thing that had been in my mind for a while.
Okay.
Right out of college, I had taken a class at Oberlin, The Life and Teachings of Jesus, which was really about historical critical interpretation of Scripture, and I totally jived with it, which is funny because there were 60 people in the class, a lot of them at Oberlin's ultra liberal school, and folks were like finding the ways to sort of cast off what they understood as the the oppression of religion upon them, because look, it wasn't really inspired, or it's been crafted, it's been put together by people. And for me, it was like so liberating, and I got so deep into it, and I loved it so much. I was like, oh, I could do this. Right. So
did you, out of curiosity, did you before we move on from that, did you grow up in the church?
I did. Grew up in the church, but I'd always been super scientifically oriented.
Yeah.
Like, I remember second grade, I read a book about rockets, and it talked about Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and how they're going. And I remember it almost felt like this mental click as I grasped it, and I began to see like how things worked in my brain, and I was like, oh, that's good, right? And then got in the, and then totally love physics because, use these mathematical models to describe the world. And it was so exact and so precise. So it was like, for me, it really spoke to sort of some way that I understand the divine.
Yeah.
There was this order imposed upon chaos in such a way that we are able to use this language of math to describe it and plumb the depths of its knowledge, right? So that was a lot of sort of what drove me into physics. And now I go like, oh, I really should have done physics and philosophy, because I was really more interested in like the philosophical underpinnings and like some of that and how that would have meshed with theology a lot better. But
so like cosmology, things like that. I always regretted. I went to Eastern University for my undergrad, and in the Philadelphia area, great school. Sort of left leaning evangelical school, but there's a lot of presence of mainline. There was Episcopalian. I mean, that's where I discovered the Episcopal Church. But they had a cosmology class in the physics department, and man, I wish I had taken that class. It was taught by the person who did most of the like astronomy and stuff like that for Eastern.
Right.
Just what I think I would have, as much as like I stayed away from anything math related when I was in like college. I have a philosophy degree in undergrad, so like I think I would have loved the cosmology class, and I really wish I had taken it. And it's plus like I don't know how common that is in colleges to have cosmology, but maybe it's more common than I realized.
Well, it depends on, if it's entry level. It's not often the case to have it in such a way for after having it in the mathematical sense, because there's some of the math is so difficult.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it from sort of an introductory level, it's a lot easier to grasp. You can talk about it sort of in conceptual language and how that works, and that's not a problem at all. So that you can definitely have that. So I had done a lot of stuff around all that sort of stuff too. But so it was there was a lot of stuff moving that ultimately when I left grad school, it was okay, I either go to seminary, or I was thinking, okay, what else would I do? Maybe I need to think about what are my options. Don't just jump at this. Think about it. And so my other option was like, I'm going to go to culinary school. Like I'd worked in restaurants since I was 15, and I really like to cook, and I do a lot of, I still do all the cooking at the house. It's what I do. So I thought
a lot of science involved in cooking, right?
Yeah, but it's also there's a creative side of things, and now I think I don't really pay attention to, like, if I'm trying something, I'll try a recipe, but usually like if I'm throwing dinner together, the other night I made a butternut squash soup, and I just did it because I know I've had enough experience under my belt. That's all. So yeah, but I did ultimately decide going to seminary, because I started making pros and cons. I'm like, well, if I work in a restaurant, I'll never have weekends. And then I said, well, if I work in a church, I'll never have weekends.
Yeah,
all right,
true.
Fine.
Oh, it's so true.
So ended up my wife and I got married. 3 days later, we were in Columbia, South Carolina, and ended up did that. In Lutheran world, we do 2 years of classes. We do a year of internship in a congregation,
right?
Then a final year of classes. And I did the internship up in Boston, and then went back to South Carolina. And went, oh God, it's hot up here. That was the worst part. Oh, summer from April to October. Ugh. But no, it's not bad. We ended up. I did my first call in Morgantown, West Virginia, on the my church the church I served sat on the edge of WVU's campus.
Okay.
And then about actually coming up 10 years ago, I got a call. Now I do campus ministry here in Pittsburgh, and ended up back in Pittsburgh. I finally felt like I had broken free. Pittsburgh has this terrible like gravitational pull of sorts. Like you might get out for a while.
Yeah.
But you're back in.
Well, that's Pennsylvania. That's Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
if I'm not mistaken, at least it used to be the case that Pennsylvania had the highest rate of people who died living 20 miles from where they were born. And then like Delaware County, Pennsylvania, which is where I live now, and I'm not from here. That's where I serve a church. Has like the highest rate in the state of Pennsylvania. People who like stay when they so like I live now in a place where like literally everybody's from here, and everybody here, and like we're right outside Philadelphia, so you think it's a huge metropolitan area, like millions of people. Everybody in Delaware County, Pennsylvania knows each other. Everyone went to school together. Everybody, like, it's wild. But PA in general is that, right? You get sucked back in. Yeah, you get sucked back.
Yeah, I've managed to live in all three sections of PA. Western, I grew up there. I spent time at Penn State, and then I lived in Downingtown for a year.
Yeah, you said Westchester, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned Prima Pills.
I know that was a coincidence.
Yeah, I lived within walking distance of the of Victory.
Yeah, so, that's so funny. I just pulled that out. I was like, what Pilsner from Pennsylvania should I say? And I just picked Victory because I know they're present in both sides of the state. That's why I picked it.
That's right. I just we have one here. I have some in my fridge right now. Helltown has a Pilsner, so
nice.
I got a little bit of that, so I'm
nice.
gonna
Yeah, you gotta have. It's a drink inspired by you. You have to try it. That's like
I gotta do it.
It's gotta be a rule. I feel like
I think it does. So
yeah,
but so it's been a lot all over the place. It wasn't until I will say. The podcast, I remember having a conversation with Joshua Wise. We were at the Pro Ecclesia conference, CCET conference.
Yeah, tell people who don't have any idea what that is, please, what it is.
So yeah, it was a Pro Ecclesia is a journal that runs in the sort of the evangelical Catholic, which means those of us who are evangelical in the Lutheran sense. Mm-hmm. That's what Luther called his movement, the Evangelische. But so basically it's a Protestant and Catholic thing, but folks who are very wed to traditional modes of theology and philosophy, and this conference every year has been. I go when I can, and a lot of them are a little more conservative and curmudgeonly than I am. Although I'm 50 now, I guess I could start my curmudgeon status. Like
sure.
A curmudgeon novice. But no, yeah, I'm not quite as conservative as they are. But anyway, yeah, I ran it. Gosh, I bet you this would have been like the 2013 Pro Ecclesia conference. I ran, Joshua Wise was there, and we were chatting. He talked about his stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about doing a podcast. And we talked a little bit about it. And
so back then we were doing, that's when we were doing the first time around, when we were doing No Avatars Allowed, which was our theology and video game podcast. We
talked about that. Yeah.
Yep. That's when we did that the first time around, which is the genesis for All Ports Open existing, is that we did No Avatars Allowed the first time, and then I left the show, and then there was like a couple other iterations of that. Then it ended for a little while, and then Josh and I were working together at my parish now and living together in community, and like out of that came All Ports Open, and we brought No Avatars Allowed back, which only just kind of went back to retirement. It's now a semi-existing podcast, but we do obviously tons of other podcasts and stuff together.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. We had. Yeah, so it was 2013. It was like November 2013 that I started Church of the Geek. And I started it with David Hansen, at the time a pastor, I think in Prairie Hill, Texas. Now he's in the Houston area. And we went around for a bit. His schedule got really busy with him doing other stuff. And so he left. And I kind of floundered for a while. So if you look at my publication history of Church of the Geek, there was, I don't know, dozen or so episodes at the beginning, and then kind of on and off. And then I got my one of my friends here. I'd run into him. His kids were in scouts. I was in scout. My kids were in scouts. We bumped into each other. He's a hospice chaplain. Now he's my co-host, and we do stuff, and for probably 4 years now. So
That's
almost
awesome.
every other week. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell people about the show. What can they expect from
Yeah.
Church of the Geek?
So now it used to be sort of all things geeky, and we talked about the intersection of geek and faith life. But now we talk about it as the intersection of the comic and the divine. We really look in on mostly comic stuff.
Right.
We do the occasional stuff, like we talked about Dune.
Right.
We talked about recently the Netflix series Shadow and Bone. We'll talk about Star Trek.
Sure.
So all that all that sort of stuff. But the main bulk of it is comic stuff. So comics themselves, but also MCU movies, shows, DC stuff, all of that. It's the easiest thing to stay narrowly focused with occasional forays out. We did try some things with. I had a sort of, since we do the main episode every other week, I was trying a live play, an actual play podcast of D&D, and called Holy Crit. And
great name, love it.
It was thank you. I was pretty pleased with that one. It came to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I searched like everywhere to find like, did anybody use that?
Yeah,
like,
right.
No, great, it's mine. And then at the time we were using Zencaster, I still use Zencaster to record.
Oh yeah.
But at the time they didn't have things worked out, so like the tracks wouldn't always line up.
And so I know. Really yeah.
And then we had it one night where people like dropped in and out multiple times, and it's this nasty editing snafu. It's just everything is this terrible conglomeration, and I totally bogged down on it. I still haven't unsnarled all of the fishing line that's tangled, so I really wanted to do it because it was a good story, and it ended really completely surprisingly, and I need to get it done and do all that. But every once in a while, like I even we did this in 2020 for there was a thing called the Triduum Project. Triduum is the 3 days of Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. And my campus ministry colleague out in Colorado, Zach Paris, came up with this idea of this thing called the Triduum Project, where we would do a 72-hour live stream. And folks would jump in at different times and do different things, and there'd be some prayer things and there'd be other things. So I offered to run a role-playing game.
Oh, cool.
Do like 3 sections across that.
Oh,
and cool. I was going to use Fate, and I had this idea about doing stuff with angels over this time.
Sure.
And then I realized like I would have had to have brought the people who were going to play. I didn't know them all that well. One of them was my campus ministry colleague down in Texas. But we got a bunch of people together. We played it. But I had to create my own. So I now have the role-playing game called Triduum.
Oh, wow.
So it's because it's named after the day you did it, But it's a super rules light system on angels, and it's just actually I think it's a lot of fun.
I would love to see it. See, I didn't even know that. Again, coincidences, because most of the people that we have on our show are TTRPG designers, not all. Part of the goal of the show, originally the goal of the show was always going to be of Holy Happy Hour was going to be heroes of the gaming and geek world, as I always say. So but TTRPG world is something I'm in so much of the time. And so it tends to be, we end up having a lot of game designers on the show, but Christian game design is something I've been talking about on the show recently. I've had a lot of Jewish game designers on, and I've had conversations with them about, I don't know what it would look like to design something I might call a Christian game, but I played the Passover game, Manish Tana, recently, which is purposefully a Passover TTRPG, super well-designed, amazing game. We did an actual play of it here on Holy Happy Hour just a couple weeks ago. I'd love to know more about
Well, there are 3 episodes up on my podcast. If you look down through it, but that's
have you thought about developing it more? Thought about like playtesting it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the people who played it picked it up super quick. It's super easy. It's very fast to create your character.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's rules light. It's really about the story and the excitement and telling this, and you only need a D8.
Yeah. Okay.
And as I am the game master, I don't have a fancy name for it yet, but
sure,
I'm the I don't roll a dice ever.
Yeah.
I say, okay, we'll do this, and they roll the dice and see what happens. So
yeah.
It's really I did it for that. I did it for a local youth group. I we did this online, and they had a really good time. So
cool.
it was an interesting way to sort of wed the sort of a theologically rich story into a role-playing game.
Yeah. So, I would love to link that video in the show notes. So if for people who are watching this later, the link to the video might be in the show notes. So
well, the link to the audio. The video is
gotcha.
Here's the thing, because we did it for the Triduum project, it was 8-hour blocks.
Gotcha.
And you'd have to find your way through.
I see.
The videos exist, but it's within a lot of
gotcha
other stuff.
Gotcha.
So,
but I can link people to the audio if that's possible.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll have to put that in the show notes. That would be fabulous. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Sorry. Please do.
Yeah, the church.
Please do.
Yeah, but that's you were kind of giving us the spiel as to what the podcast does in general, and then
So it's mainly like this past during the pandemic, like we hit a stretch where like there's no new material. What are we doing? There's no shows, there's no movies, there's nothing. And so Sam and I started doing what we called the comic book deep dive.
Yeah.
And went over things like we did Will Eisner's Contract with God, which is a stunning little, like, the first graphic novel, and it's incredibly religious. There's the theological themes are everywhere, because the guy literally has an argument with God, and God is personified in a thunderstorm, and it's just and the art is beautiful. In that we also did I was trying to scan my we did there was a version of Anadio Okorafor's After the Rain, which is this beautiful book about this American who is in Nigeria visiting family, and there's this experience with spirits and all this sort of stuff, and it's a great stuff. I mean, so we did all sorts of things like that. We did that for a few weeks for a while. It was right after Wonder Woman 1984. It's like that came out. We did a Gail Simone arc of Wonder Woman. Gail Simone, she's so good. She writes this epic arc of Wonder Woman, and Rise of the Olympian was one that was the arc that we did, and it was so fun. So we did all these sort of things until things finally started to cut loose, and so we started to get things like Black Widow and
well, now we have the MCU on Disney Plus, and I feel like there's so much content, MCU content, comic related content. I'm not even caught up on all of it, and I try to keep up on all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like we went from nothing to drinking out of a fire hose.
It's true. It's real true.
It's been a challenge. Like, and also because they, they're not Netflix. They don't drop everything all at once.
Yeah.
And so now, like, we're like, we want to talk about it, but we don't want to talk about it 4 times.
I hear you. Yeah.
We want to talk about the thing as a whole.
Sure.
We don't take all that sort of like episodically, generally speaking. So,
yeah,
at least there have been some movies. We were able to talk about Shang-Chi and talk about Dune. We did talk about Dune because that's my favorite. That's just one of my favorites, and I couldn't not talk about it. So it's not a comic, but
No, I mean, luckily you your show is called Church of the Geek because you can talk about whatever you want. That's geeky, and many things can be, right? So, plus Dune was just so good. I haven't really had a chance. I haven't had a forum. I don't think we were going to talk about Dune on one of our shows. We ended up not. It's so good. I haven't. Okay, so I have to admit, I've never read Dune. I was never a Dune person. Like I saw the what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm just spacing the previous film version,
the David Lynch
version. I like David Lynch. I was a David Lynch fan. But that's a weird movie, that's its own rabbit hole, right?
It's a weird movie, and if you disconnect it from the book, I like it. It was just, the feeling you had to make it in one movie,
yes,
instead of multiple. That's always a problem.
The budget, the fact that when he made it, there's a lot of factors that I think that movie, it kind of is what it is because of those things, and I like it, but it was wonky, and I didn't know anything about Dune when I watched it, and I'm like, what the hell is this like Dune thing? But then this movie, it just I don't know, captured my imagination and my attention in a way that I was surprised by. I found it to be incredibly gorgeous, and I've watched it now a number of times, again, because of HBO Max. I saw it twice in the theater. I can just kind of put it on and just look at it because it's so gorgeous.
Villeneuve is, I mean, his movie Arrival, right? It's another similar one. It is it's beautiful and amazing, and you can definitely tell Villeneuve's fingers are all over this, and it's just I'm glad he did it.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I think he's got a real sense of what to do. He had a real sense of what to leave out, what to exposit, what not to exposit, how to engage that, and so.
I can't wait for. I'm so glad that we're getting the next part of it.
I don't think. I mean, part of me goes, that was already decided.
There's no way they could not have, right?
There's no way they couldn't have, but they made us all wait. Are we gonna? Yeah.
I don't know the truth of that. I really don't. I mean, maybe it could just be as simple as we are still in a pandemic, and Hollywood has been on edge about everything,
True.
and it could be that they were like, well. I mean, obviously we're going to greenlight this, but also we're not going to greenlight it until we know.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know, but just watching that, I'm like, how could you watch this and not go, oh yeah, we need a part 2?
Absolutely. Well, I'm just glad that it's happening, and I did hear that his vision is doing a third part and taking the Dune Messiah, whatever the third one, and doing that as the close of a trilogy style story, which if that's what we're going to get, I mean, it fits the themes of what we saw this movie do, right? It makes sense if where the story goes connects to, spoilers for Dune, I guess, if where the story goes connects to the moment we saw in his vision of him, looking at the Imperial planet from space as a conqueror, if that's sort of the themes that we're going to see play out over a trilogy, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I've read up through the first 4 of the books. God Emperor Dune is another dense thing to get through. Yeah. But I think I have Heretics of Dune and Chapter House left to go, which I should have read it by now, but oh well.
Like you said, not enough time, too much stuff to get through.
That's right. At least they're on my shelf. I can get them at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So comics wise, I wanted to talk to you about your comics taste and your comic interests. And, where I guess you didn't. It's interesting that you didn't really grow up reading too many comic books. But so when did you start really getting into comics then? When did you start avidly reading? I guess
I started collecting.
Yeah, collecting. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I do remember reading. There were always a lot of collected editions of back in the day before the real trade paperback industry took off. I remember reading in elementary school big thick uh, collections of Batman and Superman, just the real, and so what would have been the old sort of golden age type collection, and I read a bunch of those. So, very familiar with the characters and with stories about that and villains, because that was really, you know, seven, wasn't really till the 80s you start really having to deal with issues of continuity and stuff, and because that was never the issue. So you could read all that back stuff and just read it over and over and over again, because the stories just recycled themselves. They didn't expect people to really stick with comics beyond 15 or so, but so there it was. They didn't worry about all that sort of things. But yeah, I started when I was in grad school. I started reading. They had on my walk from my apartment to to my laboratory, it was the great comic shop there in State College, the Comic Swap.
Okay.
And became friends with the owner there, Chris, and would stop in and get a bunch of books, and started just reading, whatever was interested, or whatever people were talking about. I'd check it out and all. I had I think one of the first things, well, even before I got to there, I picked up and started literally trying to collect the entire run of Avengers West Coast. It has 101 or so issues. And I had almost all of them. I needed about 3 more of them. Ultimately, I sold it, but it was sorry. So that was sort of like a first go at it, but then I picked up Neil Gaiman's collected Books of Magic, the 4-issue limited series. That was all in one collected volume, and read it, and it was gorgeous. And I just started to understand what comics could do, what kind of stories they can tell, how that all looks. Pardon me. And so, I had the Books of Magic, that first series that they did after that limited series. I was collecting those. I was collecting other things that just, if it looked interesting, if it had an interesting cover. I wasn't so worried about sort of the big stuff. I read what was interesting. So it was about the time there was like X-Men 2099, there's a whole 2099 sort of thing that was going on. I read some of those. I did I also like most of it was stuff, if there was mythic sized stories, and that's
Sure.
why I felt like, things that were really sort of meaty. After a while, like, there are, the one thing about superhero stories is that sometimes it's hard to tell good superhero stories because so much ground has been tread with it. And, after a while they kind of be just like, all right, fine, I get it, but then every once in a while you get stuff like Hickman's recent House of X and Powers of 10 bit, like that was something that just blew me away recently. So got into it, was doing it. I moved 1,000 times, it feels like, between like, so I started moving all those long boxes, and and at some point there wasn't a great there's now a good comic book store in Morgantown, but for a while there wasn't a good one. So I wasn't reading, I wasn't collecting, I wasn't doing stuff. And after a while, I wanted a new bike, so I sold my comics so I could buy a new bike. And all right, it worked. It's fine. Nowadays I'm back to, I have these collections, and
Sure.
and it's kind of the same thing. I pick stuff up that looks interesting. I'll read it for a bit. If it doesn't catch me, I drop it in a bin not the trash bin, but like, like if it's good, if it's something like I'll like hand it to my kids, like, hey, read this, you'll like it,
Sure.
or just, some way to get rid of it or pass it on to others. And then I only collect the stuff that I feel is like really good stuff. So like recently the Hickman House of X Powers of 10. That was so good. And I am enamored with comics that want to put Jesus in it.
Okay.
So it is fascinating the number of comics that are out there that include Jesus, that not biblical comics, not
Sure.
Bible
No,
stories,
yeah.
right?
Right.
And so now I've begun this sort of research project and trying to find all sorts of places. And this was I started to take a sabbatical in the summer of 2020, and that I had to leave the sabbatical because there's just the way things were changing constantly. And it lasted about 4 weeks, but
It seems like a bad time for sabbatical.
it was a horrible time. It just, for a campus minister who's got nobody else to handle things, and nope, okay, I got to take care of this. So, but I started doing this, and I started pulling together all these, because before that, Mark Russell's Second Coming, right? DC was going to publish this story about Jesus coming back to Earth, not as like the apocalypse, all right, but as just coming back to Earth, like God the Father sends Jesus back to Earth to learn how to be a real man, and he lives with a superhero. And DC was going to do it, and then the backlash was dumb. But so then Ahoy Comics picked it up, and they just finished its second 6-issue run. And that got me looking. Then I realized Mark Millar had done American Jesus.
Okay.
Which there's volume 1 and volume 2. The first volume actually focuses on Satan, and the second one deals with Jesus. But then even before that, the first underground comic that was ever written was The New Adventures of Jesus. I've
read Jesus Hates Zombies. That's like the only. Have you ever read Jesus Hates Zombies?
I don't think I've seen that one. No.
You should look it up.
Is that the one in the Loaded Bible, volume 1? Because Jesus deals with zombies in that one. So I don't know if that was it.
I don't think so. Well, I know that Jesus in that.
Oh, that was vampires. Sorry, it was vampires.
Vampires. Okay. So in this, Jesus comes back. It is a zombie apocalypse, and so but Jesus comes to to basically help the world deal with this zombie problem, I suppose, by killing them, and also teams up with zombie Abraham Lincoln for some reason, and the two of them, basically go on a zombie killing rampage. Yes, that is a comic that exists that I have read some of at some point in my past. What feels like now distant past, but that's another example of one that I know of.
That's awesome. I'm going to mark that one down because I hadn't heard that one, but
it's ridiculous. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, well, I just picked up one last week I found it at my local comic store that had had the discount table out, and there was one called F Yeah, and it was about Jesus.
Really? Jesus,
a nun, and the devil going against other deities who were trying to bring about the end of the world. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. But it kind of is. There's also Punk Rock Jesus. I don't know if have you seen that one?
No, I don't think I have actually.
Oh, that's a good one. That actually, Jesus is a. Well, I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, Jesus is back, and basically, it was a guy coming out and saying that he's an atheist. He grew up in an evangelical sort of scenario, and ultimately realized he doesn't need God, and this is how he processed it and creates Punk Rock Jesus.
So do you feel like a lot of the stuff is that kind of thing, whether that's someone leaving maybe evangelicalism for some other version of life like atheism or agnosticism or something? Do you like that it's people processing their experiences of religion through?
I think yes. I think that is absolutely the case. I think particularly the ones where as you say that, it makes me think about this, that I think it's the ones who basically where Jesus is a clone. Like, I think that's saying something about the Jesus that is handed down through sort of a copy of a copy of a copy of a, and like, what does that mean? And how does that look like? And you know. So there's a definite Christology there. I will say, I do think while the last issue of Second Coming, or the last issue of this second volume of Second Coming, Second Coming, Only Begotten Son, that's the subtitle. I didn't think it landed well for me, but like the stuff that Mark Russell is doing with Second Coming is actually really interesting because I think we interviewed him on the podcast. I just threw out a thing on Twitter. Like, I don't even know what like inspired me to do this, but I was like, hey Mark, you want to come on with two pastors and talk about your thing? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, wait, did that just happen? Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah.
But great. And I don't think he would call himself Christian, but he really wanted to engage this story of Jesus. And I think he does it in a really respectful way. I don't think he's not making the bursting muscle like Rambo Jesus.
Sure.
Which that's what you got in Jesus. Right. He's really trying to engage the meaning and story of Jesus. So like you get those sort of differences there. You're like the people who are like, oh, I want to get rid of, religion. And then the people who are like, this is a really important story. And I really want to delve into that and really want to understand that. So there's a couple different ways that works itself out. And I think there's a third category. I can't pin it down just yet. Still trying to figure it out. But, I even think, because even the New Adventures of Jesus, that underground comic, is really trying to make sense of Jesus' story in the midst of a society that doesn't, that claims to follow him, but doesn't really always take it seriously.
Yeah.
Or twists and deforms it.
Right.
So, yeah. So I think it's fascinating to watch the way that comics takes Jesus sort of under the radar, right? Because for so long, nobody takes comics seriously, and so there's this stuff that happens, and well, comics are just for kids, so nobody really thinks about it. But there are people who are really telling really fascinating stories. There's Mary, what is it? I'm trying to look on my shelf here.
Sure.
But it's like Mary wept at Jesus's feet, or something like that. Mary wept, and it's like Chester Young or something. And for him, he's engaging that in terms of the Jesus story, in terms of sex workers.
Wow.
And I've not read it yet, so I'm still,
wow.
But it's on my shelf and it's there. And I'm ready. So there's a lot of ways that people are really trying to make sense of that story, whether it's their own reason for leaving or whether it's the way for them to engage and make sense and bring meaning into their life. So I think those are two main ways that this gets used. I also think, I don't know if there's also this isn't a Jesus one, but there's The Goddamned by Jason Aaron.
No.
Jason Aaron is a phenomenal comic writer who really brings in depth and into stuff. He's written a lot of Avengers. He wrote the whole thing around the death of Thor.
Oh yeah, okay.
Thor the Unworthy. And he is one who has walked away from religion, but he keeps telling religious stories. Like, part of me wants to go, dude, I don't think you know what you did here, because it's really fascinating. But his Goddamned is the first one. It's following, it's the story of Cain and Abel, and then Cain is walking the earth, and then the second one is called the Goddamned, the Virgin Brides. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Oh, you're fine.
The title. Okay.
No. You're good. You're good.
And he's engaging this story of, it's sort of the Nephilim. Yeah. Right. When the sons of God had, or the Nephilim had relations with the. So it's.
If people want to know what you're talking about, they can look up Genesis chapter 6 and be confused. But yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it is it's brutal. It's at times ugly, and it is not for the faint of heart. I reviewed it for our off the shelf and just try to make sense of it. But it's hard, but it's fascinating as they try to make sense of it in this medium that's comics. I think it's a great place for that to happen.
Yeah. It's definitely a medium where you can tell all kinds of different stories that maybe there's, I don't know where else you tell them, like in some ways, like, and to take a figure like Jesus, or to take even just religious experience in general, I don't know, to play in that space. I don't know. Jesus as pop culture figure, or like, I don't even that's really the right, but like cultural icon is interesting, right? Because even in Christianity, because even like who is that Jesus, and like even in, it's certainly not the historical person, right? And even in like
Right.
Christian literature, right? You have like, I will never forget, I grew up in the evangelical world, and so like I read the Left Behind books. If people don't know what that is, it's Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins books that talk about the second coming of Jesus in a very evangelical way, and the a supposedly like tribulation period that follows that. But at the end of those books, like, you have battle Jesus coming back and like killing his enemies, and like on a war horse. Like if that was in a comic book, we might be like, oh wow, ridiculous. But like there it is in in a Christian book, So I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't know even what to make of it beyond that, other than we take this person Jesus from history, and we take this person Jesus from doctrine and dogma and religion and worship, and then we create even other things than that out of the name of him and the idea of him and the essence of him. I don't yeah, or versions of him and twisted versions. I don't.
Yeah, well, even Dostoevsky does it in the Brothers Karamazov. You get the Grand Inquisitor,
Yeah,
arc there, and that's a really incredible story.
yeah, absolutely.
And so there are other places this happens. It's
Yes.
just when it happens in Dostoevsky, oh, it's literature. When it happens in comics, it's what. But yeah.
I mean, that's its own problem, like you said, touched on with comics not really being taken seriously. Although I wonder if they still have that problem. I don't know. I haven't thought about this before, really. But because, like, obviously, so now dominant force in our culture, MCU, DCU, like, is DCU what you call it? Is it DCU?
I think it's the DCEU.
That's it. I knew it was something else. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have those, but people that I talk to who are more intellectual still don't take it seriously because they see it as big Disney, like Hollywood stuff. Like, so it's still not, by a lot of people take it seriously in that way, like the way you might take Dostoevsky seriously. I mean, I'm not saying that's not without good reason. I love Brothers Karamazov's like my favorite novel. Like, like I'm not, but there is, I mean, I do think that like there is comics that are comparable to literature. Maybe not Brothers Karamazov, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's not get crazy here.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, but yeah, I mean, and I wonder if we still have that problem because it's just a different version of it.
Yeah, I think, well, especially when you get some people, who was it recently? Was it Francis Ford Coppola who was like,
oh yeah, I think it was.
Oh,
right.
Oh,
was that? No. It might have been. Yeah.
It was one of those guys.
Yeah.
Scorsese, maybe.
Yeah, I forget now.
It was.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, it's junk. It's whatever. But I think we run into the same issue now with movies as you have with books. Like books that were published for the masses are somehow, or genre fiction are somehow lesser. Fantasy and science fiction for so long was lived under the sort of the Buck Rogers 1920s 30s kind of lens that it wasn't taken seriously. But then you start getting stuff. Look at what's being made. Where Foundation was made into a series, and which I haven't watched, and I've heard they've really kind of changed it around a lot. But Dune is this incredible epic movie. Like those are things that are really vital to understanding a lot of really great storytelling, a lot of brilliant narrative. How do you adapt things? How do you work through how do you make those decisions as a filmmaker and all? And I do think in a lot of ways that the all of the superhero stuff, like these are the myths of our time, which I said, but I think I've said this before, long before, but Eternals helped bring some of that about, which like it or not, like I liked it. My co-host Sam did not. But that was a real big swing and an ambitious idea of these figures being those mythical stand-ins for the people that we know, Athena and Icarus and all that. But here we are. And just even back the first season of Daredevil, there's that whole scene near the end of the first season where Wilson Fisk is in the back of the police wagon, right, and he starts re-narrating the Good Samaritan.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about this scene.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah,
the way he retells it and personalizes for himself. He realizes that he's not the robber. He's not the guy, the Samaritan. He's not the guy. He realizes that he's the malice, the hate. And I was just like, dang, that is good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, great.
That Daredevil show in general is good stuff.
It is good stuff. It's theological themes all over the place, but Daredevil's great for that too. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I liked all the seasons. I thought I liked the last season the most. I think actually. Do you believe that? Do you think Daredevil's about to appear in the MCU again? I guess.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
I would love to see.
Me too.
Love to see him back. I thought he did good stuff. I think Charlie Cox deserves to be back.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So like speaking of talking about like Marvel DC worlds, like are there bigger titles you're into these days, or do you still stay mostly in smaller, mostly indie spaces with comics? Other than I guess film and movies, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. I got back into Batman around the Tom King run, about issue number like 51, 52, where Batman or Bruce Wayne talks about not believing in God, right? We're believing in Batman. So I've been reading Batman. And that's good because right now it seems like half the DC titles out there are Batman titles.
Yeah.
I am not one who goes like, oh, I'm a Marvel guy or I'm a DC guy. I'm kind of all over the place. I want a good story, right? So I've been doing. Actually, I will say right now, there's a Black Label Batman out called Batman the Imposter. It is number one. It's a pretty compelling story. It's only 3 issues. The 2 are out now, waiting for the 3rd. But the art in that is so incredibly gorgeous. I love it so much. So I am a little bit of a sucker for Batman, really. But yes, I've continued reading Batman even after Tom King left the run. Gosh, now I'm trying like, what else do I read?
Yeah, sure.
I will say Hellboy. I will take Hellboy. I get all of it. If there's a Hellboy comic out, I get it.
Nice.
He's just one again. It's sort of part of it is art. Mike Mignola has such a great style. I love him. Gosh, I have discovered that I am a Kelly Thompson fanboy. Kelly Thompson is currently writing the Black Widow stuff, but I didn't realize she's also been writing Captain Marvel since the new the whatever's out right now. She's been writing it from the beginning.
Okay.
She has been writing it. Her writing is so good. I cannot get enough of her. It's witty, it's quick, it's clever. And then I realized, she wrote the new Avengers West Coast Avengers arc. It was only about 10 issues.
Yeah.
She wrote that. I was like, that's why I like that so much.
Right.
And then she wrote after Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, that this is the current series is connected to.
Right.
she wrote another series after that with Kate Bishop and Hawkeye,
Okay.
and Clint. So good. I really, the way she writes Kate Bishop, I feel is like sort of the definitive Kate Bishop.
Oh, cool. Cool.
It's great. It's lovely.
Cool.
She's quick and witty, and there's great pacing. And I'll say in the Black Widow, she's got a great artist, because like every issue, there's one page where there's like a scene of like a ballroom or a hallway or something, and you watch just Black Widow move through the hallway. It's cinematic almost in its scope of the way it works. So love it.
Yeah. I'll have to check out that Hawkeye run, because I've been absolutely delighted with the Disney Plus series so far, and I didn't read the Matt Fraction series, although now it makes me want to. But I would love to consume some more content related to that and Kate Bishop and all that.
Yeah, it's very good. It's also another one where the art is really, the style is really incredible.
Cool.
So, but yeah, so Kelly Thompson, I'll pick up anything she writes.
Nice.
Because, yeah, and the Captain Marvel stuff, some of it is just so silly, and I love it. It was like, it kind of hit me. At one point, there were like these extra dimensional flying cat creatures that Pete Acid out their bottom, and it was so ludicrous, but it hit exactly sort of at the right moment. I literally tweeted, I'm like, I forget exactly the line that she had, but I was like, cats peeing acid out of their butt or something like that. And I said, thanks. And Kelly Thompson, I forget what her Twitter handle is, but I said, and she literally wrote, just like replied to me on Twitter. I'm like, dude, it's like that's it. Like, so then it's just one of those things where you find out like, oh, been reading that forever, and like no wonder you like these, because they're all by the same person.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, Astro City, I was like Astro City was another one. Kurt Busiek and had written that sort of independently for a long time. It was an Image, and that was really good. That came to a close. DC Vertigo had that for a while. So sorry, my brain is
what I asked
over.
you, Geek Out. So that's what I had. You, as a collector, do you have any feelings about like Comixology or reading digitally? Because I feel like for me, like if I'm going to get into more titles again, which is something I've thought about doing a lot over the last year or so, and especially because I run a Masks actual play show, so I'm like looking to devour as many teen or anything that's sort of Masks adjacent content as possible. But if I'm gonna do that, if I'm gonna read titles, and I listen to some good comic podcasts, and it makes me want to read more. If I'm gonna do that though, it's gonna be digitally, almost definitely. Like that's the thing. Do you have feelings about that?
I do have Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
And I probably will pick up DC Infinite.
Okay.
I want to make sure that the creators get their due.
Okay.
Like there is part of that I want to make sure, like, as I'm reading this, like if I pick up a comic, like I don't know how the industry works on that end. Like, do they get royalties from that?
That's a great question.
I would imagine some do. I imagine some don't.
Sure.
Yeah, but if I'm reading DC Unlimited, or Marvel Unlimited, is that still helping the creators? I do want to know that. I do have Marvel Unlimited, because also some way that's the only way I'm going to read some of these things, because I don't have all of this. I'm not going to go out and another title that I have loved, which I started reading on Marvel Unlimited, The Immortal Hulk, is totally worth it. Al Ewing does this amazing job over 50 issues. There's like every issue starts, there's like this one page with like a quote. And very often it's like a passage from Job, or it's, something maybe from Gilgamesh, but there are these deep philosophical sort of underpinnings of this story of Bruce Banner and Gamma, and like all of this. I got to read issue 49 on the iPad, but I bought issue 50 because it closes out the whole series comes to an end. So it's only 50 issues now, so it's really manageable, and some of it wanders here and there, but it's again epic and mythic in its scope. So I love that. I love that show. So I do read it. And it's nice. I'm going to say this just on the iPad. I'm going to bump, and it goes from the scene, like it takes all the hard. Sometimes you look at those pages and you're like, what direction do I go in? How do I read this?
I know.
You hit the button, it leads you through the scenes in the right order, which, okay, but at the same time, that's where I also read Beta Ray Bill's, Walter Simonson's Beta Ray Bill story in Thor. I wasn't going to go pick that up. So
that's the other thing is, like, I think it gives you the ability to read stuff that maybe you wouldn't have read, and that means that you're going to discover writers, titles, stuff that you might not have discovered. Now, of course, both, if you're doing it that way, what you just described, you're reading Marvel content, you're reading DC content. If you're looking for smaller creators, maybe that's not as accessible. I don't know.
Yeah, that's where you have to go to Comixology, but then you're buying the issues,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So that's the thing about Marvel. They've got such a catalog. You're like, yeah, you pay us this much a year, you can read all of these, or DC, or the same thing. But
exactly.
But I do like, there's a lot of stuff. Image does lots of things. Like The Wicked and the Divine is a really great title. Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson is Space Nuns. So good. So good. Love that. So
cool. Well, we've just geeked out for a long time, which is what I wanted from doing this, about these titles, which you probably go on doing. But I'm gonna, but we're out of time. So
sorry.
No, that's exactly. There's nothing to be sorry for. But I will say, because we could have talked about a lot of other things, including TTRPG content more, which I'd love to talk about sometime. Maybe we'll be able to do this again. But I would say, if you I guess I'll end with a final question for you, which is, have you done any comic related TTRPG playing? Have you played or run any like, whether it's Marvel TTRPG or Masks or something along those lines?
Back in the day, before I went to college. I will say this: I played GURPS, Supers, the Supers RPG.
Yeah,
love GURPS.
Yeah,
love that. We found ways that be super weird with that, and
sure.
had a good time with that. But nothing really since then.
Yeah, I mean, I can't recommend Masks enough. It's great, especially if you.
That's awesome.
If you like, so I read. Oh my gosh! That's right. Sorry, for a second the title went out of my mind. I read Invincible back in the day when it came out, and then I played Masks, and then Invincible came out as an Amazon Prime show.
Yeah,
I started watching Invincible on Amazon Prime. Again, it's been a long time since I read it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so Masks. It's so Masks. So if you like that stuff, if you like stuff like that, or obviously there's a billion other examples. I mean, like I said, even this Hawkeye show is a great example with Kate Bishop in that. If you like anything like that, Masks is just an incredibly well designed game. Cypher System just released they're about to release. So it was a Kickstarter. I think I got mine in the mail. So I guess it's out. They've released a superhero version of Cypher System, and then there's tons of other versions out there. But
nice.
Need to plug that as someone that I love bringing superheroes to the TTRPG table. So
So that's great.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for coming to the show. Where can people find you out there? So Church of the Geek, wherever podcasts are found. Is there a website?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, we just started our own website, which I don't know why we didn't do it earlier, but
sure.
It is, and it's simple. It's geek.church.
That's awesome.
You can hit us up on Twitter at Geek Church. We're not using it so much anymore, but Facebook is Church of the Geek.
Sure.
And if you want to shoot us a message, geekchurch1, geekchurch1 at gmail.com.
Awesome. Fabulous. Well, Brian, thank you so much again for making the time to come on Holy Happy Hour. I really appreciate the conversation.
It's been a blast, man. Thanks for the invitation.
Definitely. I'm going to ask Brian to keep hanging out here in my digital digital green room, as I say, just AKA our back end. I'm going to go back to having just me here on the screen for you all, and I'm going to just sort of wrap up the show here. So a huge thanks again, as I said, to Pastor Brian for coming on the show. I deeply appreciate him joining me. Make sure you check out Church of the Geek, especially if you're into comics, but like we talked about, there's lots of episodes you could check out that geeks out on all kinds of stuff. So make sure you subscribe wherever podcasts are found. Please, speaking of subscribing and following, here on Twitch, if you're watching us on Twitch, if you're watching it on YouTube, hit the follow button or hit the subscribe button to my channel or to All Ports Open. If you only caught part of tonight's show, you will be able to head to allportsopen.com. That's our website to watch every episode of the show afterward. Or you can find the All Ports Open network on YouTube. And please check out more great shows on our network. We've got some fabulous stuff that I think you're going to like. And if you like superheroes, I keep plugging it, but try out Delinquent Comics. It's super fun. I think we do a pretty good job of the genre. It's certainly intense. If you like highly edited stuff with like music in your actual plays, then it might be for you. So check it out, Delinquent Comics, wherever podcasts are found. Huge thanks to Joshua Wise, my APON co-founder, for the artwork on the stream and for all he does for the network, APON, which is a lot of stuff. Thanks to Doctor Octoroc for the use of his music on the show that you heard earlier in the pre-show. I'm That Gamer Priest, Ben. Come back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. I have a special bonus episode of the show. Originally, tonight's episode was going to be the last of the year, but I am super excited to be welcoming Kat McDonald to the show to talk about Roar to Heaven, an actual play podcast playing the game Blazing Him, also by Kat McDonald. Roar to Heaven, by the way, is on Kickstarter right now. And regardless of what you think about Kickstarter right now, or crypto, or the blockchain, or any of the other discourse in TTRPG space about Kickstarter, head over and check out Roar to Heaven on Kickstarter. Consider backing what is sure to be a really great actual play show, and with a fabulous cast. And, you know, it's not anyone who's running a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter right now. It is not their fault that Kickstarter made recent announcements. So regardless of how you feel about them, please consider checking out Roar to Heaven on Kickstarter, and come back next week as Kat comes on the show to talk about all of that, talk about Blazing Him, talk about Angels next week. It'll be fun. Talk about the actual play show, talk about all that stuff. So make sure you join us 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on December 20th. So very excited about that. Okay, friends, enjoy the holiest and happiest of hours. We're not heading into the Monday night show because there is no Monday night show today. I haven't plugged it enough tonight. I finally created a little Delinquent Comics ad for the end of the show, which I'm about to show you all. So enjoy this ad for the show. I've already advertised a bunch of times. And then have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of Delinquent Comics, a Masks new generation actual play podcast. Complete back issues are available now on allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. You can help join the fight and hear the newest releases early by becoming a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/allportsopen. New bi-weekly episodes become available to all citizens on May 24th, featuring the newest arc, the Sunset Island Saga.